So Hetrick is unique in that he actually, the Klan was very powerful in New Jersey. There were more Klansmen in New Jersey in 1924 than there were in Georgia. They estimated 50,000 to 60,000 Klansmen in New Jersey. The Grand and Monmouth County was the heart of the Klan. They held, that same year, they hold the 4th of July, the Tri-State Conclave with the KON, KLAB in Long Branch. Long Branch is no longer Sin City. And the Klansmen come from all over the place to this big event in 1924. So, but this begins the beginning and the end of it. Hetrick breaks the Klan in Asbury Park. He runs in 1927 for office on an open anti-Klan platform and wins Oklahoma. So that's his good side. The other side is, well, let's say you have a boardwalk. He runs the town as a boardwalk. You have a boardwalk concession. You should pay $50,000 for it for the year. That would be the fair rate that's determined by somebody. Well, for you, $25,000, give me $5,000. Yeah, that's, and then there's more and more of that. Then he becomes a lobbyist for some large electrical monopoly that is so complicated that in the 1930s, when they try to unravel what it does, no one can figure it out. But he owns a house which still stands over, I think it's on 4th Avenue. It's the most expensive house on the street on the west side. And he also has an apartment in a hotel in New York. He has another apartment in a hotel in Washington. He has a home in upstate New York with vacations. So large amounts of money are coming in. And when you look at the census report from 1930, he says his only occupation is mayor of Asbury Park. But he's got a lot of things going on, a lot of action going on here, and a lot of kickbacks. And he says, we got to compete with Atlantic City. So he's got to compete with Nooky. Nooky's in the same way. Well, where that Commission Hall stands with a place called the 5th Avenue Pavilion. And then you saw the casino down the other end, you saw that picture of the old casino. Mysterious fires burned them down in the late 20s. A no bid contract is awarded to a famous New York architect, the guy that builds the work of Carter Ave. And up go the two edifices you see today. He builds a new high school. No, state-of-the-art high school. You can't give him credit for his professors in there. But when he does this, he runs a town into massive debt. And then 1929 comes, and the collapse. He's thrown out of office for a little while in the 30s. And then he aggressively campaigns to get back in. We had the Moral Castle incident with the burned ship between Coast and New York, just up on the beach road over there. The town totally botches what they're trying to do. They're thinking of buying the things as a tourist attraction, and there's still burned bodies on it. He comes back, takes over again, and then he's pulled down to Washington. Now it's the 30s, Prohibition is over, but he's pulled down to Washington to the whole city government has been sued because they won't pay their bonds. And he goes down there and explains to a congressional committee, oh yeah, he said, okay, yeah, we'll straighten it out, we'll do better, yeah, and they come back to that report for business as usual. So he lasts through the 1940s, and then he dies in office. He dies in office. Now Nooky, his prototype in Atlantic City, he ends up in jail the same year. They finally catch up to him, they get him for tax evasion. Frank Hague, another one of the big three, he lasts until post-World War II, and the New Jersey Constitution of 1947 makes it easier for the state to look into municipal affairs. So Frank decides it's time to move to get an apartment in New York. And that's what he does, and he dies, not in jail. But that's the story of Clarence Hetrick, a very complicated guy. Give me the next slide. So here, this is the 19th century newspaper notice. Where were chances people were taking some intoxicating liquor at Asbury Park within 1 mile of Ocean Grove Camp meeting? The New Jersey legislature passed a law in the late 19th century saying you couldn't sell alcohol within a mile of a dry town. And Ocean Grove was completely dry. You weren't even supposed to bring a beer or anything. But things happen. Next slide. Now, 8 rum craft come to anchor in Jersey. That's what I was talking about, Rum Row, right out on the horizon there. And Vigilance is redoubled. Coast Guard craft patrolling the distance from Jones Inlet to Asbury Park. Next slide. British ship, a booze runner. It says in here, books containing the names and addresses of hotel keepers at Asbury Park, Atlantic City, and Long Branch, and a map showing points to liquor motorboats could be met along the coast were found aboard. Prohibition agents said. Next slide. Rum raids, exciting Asbury Park. Oh, there they go. Yeah. Now, my father worked in Hoboken in the 1920s with a double out on a rare. I remember when I was a little kid, he told me that there were some famous speakeasies in Hoboken, needless to say, and that he grew up on the street and he would see a raid, and they would roll these barrels of beer out into the street and beat in the tops of them and pour them into the gutter, and the guy who owned the place would be standing there laughing, and the prohibition agents would be laughing. And he'd say, come back in this afternoon, folks, we'll be open again, 1 o'clock. And then the prohibition agents will all laugh too, because they were getting a few bucks, and away they go. But this is what happens here. Often, according to the agents, this section of Asbury Park, they're talking about Springwood Avenue here, has been the source of the supply of bootleg liquor for persons living within a radius of 25 miles. The Italian Quarter in Asbury Park. Well, you could make wine legally for your home consumption. And a company in California used to sell something that they called bricks, supposed to be grape juice. And it was you dissolved it in water, and it had names like Muscatel and Bordeaux or whatever. You dissolve it in water, and it says, do not leave this in your closet for 2 weeks or it will turn to wine. So, yeah. But, and then the famous bathtub gin. People would make just alcohol, grain alcohol. And my family, my uncle supposedly, his first wife, although they weren't quite sure they were really married, back in the 20s, he was her father, and he used to make bootleg bathtub gin. I remember my mother told me when I was a kid, Uncle so-and-so, he was make bathtub gin. It's terrible. It's just bad. It's terrible. But it says here, the raid, the first big attempt to break up the traffic. Automobile parties from resorts 10 and 15 miles away, because we frequently visited that section. The raids created most of the places were confectionery and grocery stores. Trouble on only one place. Antonio Ticello, the legislature resisted and fired a shot at the prohibition agents. Next slide. Federal agents swooped down at cafes ashore. Okay. Ross Benton Farm. See, that's that place where across the road in Breakfast Lake in Ocean Township. That's where actually Hendrick used to hang out there. I spoke to an older woman whose parents who lived across the street from him. His parents used to go with him and his wife over to Ross Benton Farm, and they said they were drinking and dancing all night long over there. So, but that was a raid on prior settlement for $1,000 bail. And next slide. Lastly, we have is the complaining letter to the New York Times. This guy is complaining that speakeasies on Springwood Avenue are run by foreigners. Read Italians for that. And now, this is an unusual letter. Look, it says, if an American man starts one, they frame up on him, and he is run in and sent up for 10 years. But if the foreigners are run in, they are fined about $200 and go back to Springwood Avenue and start out again. That was probably Clarence, these were his constituents. They said, hey, maybe a couple $100, don't worry about it. And that's basically the story of Asbury Park. It was as much a center for Monmouth County and the Central Jersey area as Atlantic City was further south. And there's a lot of similarities between Nooky Johnson, who was Nooky Thompson in the series Atlantic City. I'm told they originally wanted to film that show here in Asbury. I don't know how they screwed it up, but they certainly did, because they probably would have redone the whole world. Because they had period buildings. If you look at the casino down there and the convention hall here. But when he built the casino there, you see that tall stack down, and most you probably know it was a heating plant. Heated the whole world. He spared no expense. But there was another scam they did in the Depression when people, it was kind of cruel. People would lose their houses because they couldn't pay the city taxes. He had a guy, the guy who was a county prosecutor, his other lawyer friend, would buy them up at special rates. I think he got a kickback out of that, one of his less pleasant activities.